So the September Nintendo Direct happened yesterday. Being the third Direct of the year, fans have already gotten over the joy of the return of the Nintendo Direct, and we're back to a wild mudslinging cage fight. Yesterday's Direct brought a lot of joy and hype, but also a lot of disappointment. Why are screen actors in the place of legitimate voice actors to the Minions Super Mario Bros. Animated movie? Why is Danny DeVito not voicing Wario? And why the hell are they adding a paid expansion to Nintendo Switch Online instead of giving these new fancy services to already paid subscribers? N64 games and Sega Genesis games are coming to Switch Online, and we'll also see the same business model of NES and SNES Online, where these games just get trickled out over a period of time. Luckily, in the case of these consoles, they let us know ahead of time of what to expect, and honestly a pretty damn good lineup. The games that you would expect and want to see for N64, they need to add Smash 64 to this, so we have legit Nintendo Smash 64 Online. So why are people upset with this expansion online service? Well, because Nintendo's trying to sell you an N64 controller for 50 bucks. What kind of nerd is unironically going to use an N64 controller in 2021? Me. I'm that nerd.
I'm a big Smash the Genesis.
Nah, but seriously, why are people so upset about this expansion? Well, simply put, there's not enough value in the original Nintendo Switch Online, and players feel completely forced into this subscription to play their first-party Nintendo games online, where this paywall to play multiplayer online only existed a few years ago. An individual that subscribes to Nintendo Switch Online for $20 a year also gets access to cloud save data, extra features on the Nintendo Switch Online mobile app, and an online library of NES, and then later introduced SNES, games that you could stream and would be added to in the future. And each one of these three values that customers paid for was pretty lacking, especially at launch. Cloud saves are not offered with every game, but what's even more crazy is it's not offered on the biggest Nintendo Switch first-party games, like Super Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild. If an accident happens while you're traveling with your Switch, goodbye to all your save data for good. At least you can back up your islands in Animal Crossing now. That is very needed. The ability to play online multiplayer for most games on the Switch, being behind a paywall, is a 1-2 whammy. Not only was this a free out-of-the-box feature for all Nintendo games up to a few years ago, but also that Nintendo has always struggled with things like netcode or having dedicated servers for their bigger multiplayer games like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Splatoon 2, and the big system seller Mario Kart 8. With members being subscribed to the service for years, and with Nintendo showing barely interest to improve online or at least commit to seriously improving online netcode, then of course people are going to question, well, what the hell am I paying for? Oh, the games. The ability to stream over 100 NES and SNES classic games. The problem is that a lot of these games are missing key blockbusters or landmark games in the console history, which basically means all of the RPGs. No Earthbound, no Super Mario RPG, no Final Fantasy 3 or 6, whatever. And really the biggest fault of these games that annoyed a lot of people was just how slow it took for a lot of these games to come out. And most of the time they were just like obscure LJN games. And then there's the weird, odd multiplayer game that gets thrown in there, like Tetris 99, that set the way for all the games to come, like Mario 100. Looking back, it's clear to see why people are frustrated. Forget the actual price of the service, the actual rollout of content or what you're paying for was kind of ambiguous in a lot of cases over the years. Not to mention lumped in services that people would never use that I completely forgot to talk about, like the ability to voice chat in the Nintendo Switch Online app on your mobile phone. Because of all the apps on your phone, Nintendo Switch Online, a paid subscription to use a voice chat on your phone. Anyways, cut to today. Yesterday Direct, admittedly, maybe people had their hopes a little too high with the expectation of potentially Game Boy Advance games online or even GameCube. Nintendo's president Furukawa a few months ago said in an interview how they were looking to drastically change the appeal of Nintendo Switch Online, to then find out that that meant that they were not going to change the appeal of the existing service, but add an expansion to the service that doesn't address a lot of the issues I just went over of why people are not happy with Nintendo Switch Online. The other obvious main problem here is that most people are going to buy Nintendo Switch Online to play Nintendo Switch Online. There's no option for most players to just subscribe to the only service that they want, and there's been no shown commitment to improve actual online net play, again, mainly or probably the only thing that actually sells people into these services, which means that this expansion pack is basically meant for people already content with Nintendo Switch Online that want more of their retro game streaming service. Not to mention that amidst all this, with discussion of how frustrating the service service has been, even if it's an extra $10 a year to play Nintendo 64 online games. They're just playing ROMs, no fancy optimization like Microsoft tries to do, and people have spotted that in the European Direct, it looks like the N64 games are actually running the PAL versions. PAL versions of these games run at 50 Hz versus NTSC, the North American version, running at 60 Hz. These frequencies don't necessarily mean frame rate, but the actual speed at which the game is running, meaning the actual speed of things like controlling your character, slowing down the action of the game, and it's hard to argue with that the NTSC versions are the definitive versions in terms of just playing the version that runs better. So yeah, they're just playing 20-year-old ROMs, and that's why people are finding it hard to see the value in this, because, well, you can just emulate it, or there's a million Sega collections. And with old Nintendo console storefront slowly phasing out, like the death of many old eShops, this is the only legit way that you can play some of these first-party retro Nintendo games through actual Nintendo distribution. These games aren't really preserved anywhere else. The retro market is becoming stupid because people dropping millions on unopened games. Nintendo doesn't get $1 out of that anyways. And Nintendo actively shutting down any fan effort to preserve these games. I can absolutely see where people are frustrated, and I have to say it's pretty anti-consumer because Nintendo is effectively just trying to force people into this by locking a quintessential feature on the console, like playing online multiplayer, with this weird service bundle thing. And now there's fear that the original will never be updated. You have no other options if you just want to play online. And now this is going to be the easiest way for new players to get their hands on these games through actual Nintendo distribution. This new expansion will be released at the end of October next month, and we'll get more information as well as the actual pricing point of this expansion sometime before that point. So it's still up in the air how much this new expansion will be. I think if it's even $10 more a year, it's gonna set the internet on fire. People are really mad about this. And honestly, I don't blame them for all the reasons I listed before. Setting up things like Parsec and online mods to play like Mario Kart 64 with your friends is possible, but it's not very user-friendly. To out of the box play these N64 games online is actually pretty significant. Like at a certain point, if they put GameCube Virtual Console on with like Melee online, people would be willing to pay for like anything for that. I guarantee you Melee players would still find a reason to go back to Slippy though. Tell me what you think. Are people over-exaggerating? At an extra $10 a year, this puts this expansion at under $1 a month, but we'll see how much it really is. Oh my god, if it's like 15 extra dollars. Nah, like I said, even if it's 10 extra dollars, I think that the internet's gonna go crazy. There's just way too much tension, and simply adding a lower tier service to let people just pay for playing Switch Online and a commitment to upping their netcode instead of slowly changing their century-old server software to no longer have APIs to check if the server is running Windows 98. That'll be it for this one. Y'all just got dumped on. Bye-bye.